The great deplatforming has begun, and it's not going to end anytime soon. What happens next? This is America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell, and welcome to the great deplatforming. No one is safe. Not me, and not you. But before I go on, please support the show by liking this episode and subscribing to America Uncovered on YouTube, where we remain platformed, at least for now. The great deplatforming started, as most things do these days, with Donald Trump. Following the Capitol riot on January 6th, President Trump has been booted off the largest social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitch, and of course, most personally devastating for the president, Twitter. As a result, Trump has now begun communicating on TikTok through interpretive dance. That dance was either the election was rigged or we must come together as a nation. Sometimes it's hard to tell what he's dancing. In any case, since the ban on Trump, social media restrictions have gotten heavier. Twitter removed over 70,000 accounts they said were associated with QAnon. But pretty soon, the social media purge started affecting non-Q content as well. The Facebook page of the conservative Walk Away campaign was removed, and the organizers were banned from Facebook. Walk Away is a movement of people who are walking away from the Democratic Party. And even libertarian Ron Paul said that his Facebook page was restricted. I imagine this is how he broke the news. Facebook later said that the Ron Paul thing was a mistake. But the biggest purge was of Twitter alternative Parler. It went completely offline after Apple and Google banned the Parler mobile app and Amazon kicked Parler off its servers. Parler describes itself as a free speech alternative to Twitter, one that cares about the privacy of users. So, they don't sell user data to advertisers, and they don't use algorithms to feed you information. But the tech giants cracked down on Parler because they said Parler's lack of content moderation was allowing extremist and violent content on the platform. Yes, definitely not because Parler was a competitor. In fact, Parler does have a content moderation policy. And in some ways, their rules are stricter than Twitter. For example, according to Parler's CEO, Parler does not allow pornography, which Twitter does. Parler also prohibits threats of violence and posting pictures of your fecal matter in the comments section. I have some questions, and yet I don't want the answers. I would say that the people doing content moderation on Parler aren't being paid enough. But they were not being paid at all, at least initially. Parler's model was to rely on user reports and volunteer content moderators to flag content instead of an algorithm. But that system had some issues, especially when Parler got millions of new users. For example, even though Parler doesn't allow porn, there was still a lot of porn. So, was Parler a hotbed of extremist violence? Since they're now deplatformed, it's hard to know how bad the problem was. There were definitely calls for violence, but these examples in the Washington Post aren't more extreme than what you can still find on Twitter. Parler has also banned users, and in at least one case, they turned over identifying information to the FBI after a user threatened to kill Trump and Amy Coney Barrett. So it seems like they weren't purposefully letting violent content on their platform. But Parler was a small, upstart social media company that mostly attracted conservatives. It was having trouble getting rid of violent speech, so it was an easy target for its big tech competitors in Silicon Valley. But the great deplatforming has huge ramifications. Even world leaders like Angela Merkel are expressing concern over tech giants acting like some kind of world media power. And even then, it's still not enough. Now that Parler has been taken down, there's a new target. Big established social media. I'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Or maybe you didn't see an ad. A lot of my episodes get demonetized. Either way, big established social media also have problems with so-called extremism. Mainstream media are now running articles on how Facebook rewarded right-wing extremist views, and how YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook are all sources of radicalization, and how YouTube hasn't done enough to deplatform Trump. All of this has brought back the debate over private corporations and the First Amendment. Liberals argue that the First Amendment only applies to the government and not to private companies, which can do whatever they want. Conservatives argue that social media companies have become essentially a modern public square because of how much influence they have over how we communicate. Half of all Americans now say they get their news on social media at least sometimes. So conservatives say that the government should intervene to make sure that these private companies aren't restricting the public square. Yes, this issue has turned conservatives into fans of government regulation and liberals into defenders of huge private corporations. It truly is clown world. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are not going to be purged the way that Parler was. They're too big and powerful. But there's more and more pressure for them to do something. And that something usually has to do with Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. It allows tech companies to mostly avoid responsibility for what users post on their platforms. Democrats want to leverage Section 230 to force tech CEOs to weed out misinformation, which they falsely imagine can be sorted out by panels of accredited experts or fine-tuned algorithms. Republicans have threatened to repeal Section 230 unless platforms commit to viewpoint neutrality, a standard that is impossible to uphold. This sounds like it's going well. Big tech companies, of course, know what to do. In the proud American tradition of corporations writing laws, big tech has offered to write the reforms to Section 230. But after recent events, should big tech really be the ones to write the laws that regulate them? Aren't we giving Silicon Valley too much control over online speech? Shouldn't we all stop and think about this for a minute? The answer is no. We can't stop, because the thing to remember is that Trump is a terrorist, and you should be terrified.
Trump is the spiritual, but I will also say operational leader of this domestic terrorism effort. He tells them where to go. He tells them what to do. He tells them why they're angry. And so we need to start at the top, like any counterterrorism effort, which is total isolation of the President of the United States. Impeachment, yes. 25th Amendment, yes. Deplatforming, yes. All of the above. No money, no access to campaign funds. A complete isolation, because as the leader of a terrorist organization is viewed as a loser, as a not winner, it is harder for him to recruit.
That was a CNN analyst and former Department of Homeland Security official basically calling Donald Trump a domestic Osama bin Laden. And if you believe that Trump is a terrorist leader, then it's not too big a leap to start thinking of all his supporters as, well, terrorists. That may sound extreme, but the media is increasingly blurring the lines between actual far-right extremists and all Trump supporters, and even all conservatives too. Even complaining about censorship is framed as something that unites Trump supporters and extremists. And researchers warn that growing solidarity could increase the likelihood of violence on Inauguration Day. So complaining about censorship is going to cause more violence. What? Does reporting on censorship count as complaining about censorship? And even though some say that deplatforming is having a huge impact to stop misinformation, there's still a problem. The more that actual far-right extremists are kicked off mainstream platforms, the more they move to less public platforms, like chat apps, specifically Telegram and Signal. And those are out of view of law enforcement. Of course, millions of regular, law-abiding folks are also moving to Telegram and Signal, simply because they're concerned about privacy and censorship. But you see where this is going. We're now going to have to deplatform every platform, from Telegram and Signal to podcasts, and more. Here's Alex Stamos, former Facebook Chief Security Officer, talking about the need to censor conservative influencers on social media and conservative TV networks like Newsmax and OANN.
We have to turn down the capability of these conservative influencers to reach these huge audiences. There are people on YouTube, for example, that have a larger audience than daytime CNN, and they are extremely radical and pushing extremely radical views. And so it's up to the Facebooks and YouTubes in particular to think about whether or not they want to be effectively cable networks for disinformation. And then we're going to have to figure out the OANN and Newsmax problem. That these companies have freedom of speech, but I'm not sure we need Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such to be bringing them into tens of millions of homes.
You know when Stamos is talking about these radical influencers on YouTube with audiences bigger than CNN, he's obviously talking about PewDiePie. Do you know how many people PewDiePie has radicalized through Minecraft Let's Plays and book reviews of Stoic philosophers? Anyway, the point is that we need to deplatform every platform that ever has anything we don't agree with. And if far-right extremists / Trump supporters / conservatives don't like it, then they can build their own platforms and cell phone operating systems and servers and internet and telecommunication companies. Is that so hard? Meanwhile, Parler is back. Sort of. They've managed to find someone to at least host their website again, but it looks like it will be a while before they're back up and running properly. And it's unclear if they'll be able to recover from being deplatformed for so long. Parler has also filed an antitrust lawsuit against Amazon, but legal experts say it's unlikely to succeed. More than 2 years ago, I said in an America Uncovered episode that tech companies deplatforming people we don't agree with was a mistake. Here's another reason to be worried about these decisions from tech companies. If we as a society don't stand up to protect speech from people we disagree with or who have ideas that are not widely accepted, what will happen when the censors come for us? Specifically, when the censors come for me. I'm mainly worried about me here. And I stand by what young, non-bearded Chris said back then. I don't support right-wing extremism, or left-wing extremism, or even center-wing extremism. But I've covered topics on my shows that were controversial, and sometimes they were things that were labeled initially as misinformation, but then turned out to actually be true information, like Hunter Biden's ties to China. The mainstream media initially called it Russian disinformation, but then it turned out that the federal government is investigating Hunter Biden for his business dealings in China. And that is a big reason I think we are going down a dangerous path here by allowing big tech and corporate media to determine what we can say. I never thought I'd see the day when I was more concerned about being censored for what I say about America than what I say about China. And that is why I need your help. Before YouTube turns America Uncovered into America Not Covered. YouTube has been heavily demonetizing us. And if our past experience with the adpocalypse is any indication, it's going to get worse as YouTube gets pressured to be more aggressive. If you can support the show by giving $1 or more per episode on the crowdfunding website Patreon, that would help us tremendously. We'll be using extra resources to back up all of our episodes on our own websites. And if you'd like to give a one-time donation, you can find out how on our website, americauncovered.tv/support. I know that some of you have asked us to look at Patreon alternatives, and we will be doing that as well. Let me know what your favorite ones are in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your support. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.